The laugh in the hallway. The hallway of Zentrax Academy was wide, glowing with soft blue lights, and filled with students from all corners of the galaxy. There were tall insectoids, glowing reptilians, and gas-like beings floating in containment suits. They whispered, chatted, and moved with confidence. In the middle of them all walked a boy. Quiet, simple, human. His name was Ray, and he was the first human ever allowed into the elite academy of the Galactic Union. No one greeted him. Some ignored him. A few looked at him like he didn't belong. But one alien student, Zara of Clan Valari, took things further. She smirked as she saw him walking, carrying his books like some ancient being out of place. "There goes the fragile one," Zara said loudly, her voice echoing in the hallway. "Careful, human, don't fall. The floor is too hard for your soft bones." The other students chuckled. A few laughed louder than needed, just to impress Zara. She was popular, fast, beautiful, strong, and one of the top students in physical combat class. Her smooth silver skin shimmered in the hallway light, and her four-fingered hand pointed at Ray with mock concern. Ray didn't respond. He looked at her for only 1 second. His eyes didn't show anger or fear, just silence. Then he walked past. Zara blinked. For a moment, something in Ray's gaze made her spine tighten. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Something cold. She shook it off and turned to her friends. Maybe he didn't understand. Maybe Earth's gravity makes the brain slow. More laughter. But deep inside, Zara felt a strange discomfort. That silent stare, it didn't match the image of a weak, soft creature. It was like looking into a well that had no bottom. That night, Zara sat on her bed in the dorm, flipping through her datapad. She looked up Earth, mostly out of boredom. "Primitive planet," the galactic net said. "Level 3 technology. No psychic development. Basic weapons. Little known cultural influence." She laughed again. "Why even allow him here?" she whispered. But then, out of curiosity, she tried to access Earth's military history. The screen blinked. Access. Denied. Clearance level red warning. Attempt logged. She frowned. Why would history be locked? Next morning, combat training class began. Zara stood in the center of the circular arena, stretching her arms. Around her, students warmed up. Instructors walked with data slates. Ray entered quietly, standing near the edge. Zara smirked. And idea came to her. "Ray," she called out, voice sharp. "Why don't you join us today?" He looked up. "You want to try real training?" she teased. "Or is Earth training just running from wild animals?" Some students chuckled again, but Ray walked toward her without a word. He stepped into the ring. "I accept," he said, voice calm. The instructors raised their brows but nodded. "Begin when ready." Zara charged, fast and light on her feet. Her people trained from birth. She moved like liquid metal, aiming a light jab to his side just to startle him. But Ray stepped aside before she even finished her move. He didn't hit back, just moved. Zara narrowed her eyes and attacked harder. A low spin kick, a fake strike to distract, a real blow toward the neck. Ray avoided all of it like he already knew. And then, just once, he reached out. With a single touch, he guided her momentum away, and Zara landed on the floor with a thud. No pain, just humiliation. The room went silent. Ray stepped back and offered his hand to help her up. She looked at it, but didn't take it. He waited for 3 seconds, then turned and walked away. No smile, no gloat, just silence. In the locker room, Zara stared at her reflection. Her silver skin seemed dull under the white lights. How did he? She whispered to herself. She had fought faster opponents, stronger ones, but never someone who moved like that, like he was dancing, not fighting. And that cold stare in the hallway. It returned to her mind. Not fear, not pride. Something else. A warning. For the first time since she joined the academy, Zara didn't feel stronger. She felt unsure. The challenge day. The training arena was full again. This time more students showed up. Word had spread fast. The human had defeated Zara. No one expected it. Some still didn't believe it. Others came just to watch what might happen next. Zara stood near the edge, arms crossed, trying to look calm. But inside her, something burned. Not anger, not hate, confusion. She had trained since childhood. She was faster than most species at the academy. But yesterday she had fallen, without a single hit. And that human, Ray, he didn't even try. Zara's pride wouldn't let her. Stay quiet. So she walked straight to the center of the arena and called out loud and clear, Ray, let's have a real challenge, the students murmured. Some looked at Ray, who was quietly adjusting his gloves. He turned his head and met her eyes. What kind of challenge? He asked. Zara raised her chin. A full-speed duel. No holds. First to knock the other down wins. Ray didn't speak. He simply walked to the center of the ring and nodded. The instructor, a six-legged being with a crystal spine, raised his hand. Combat duel initiated, the speaker announced. Begin on my signal. The arena lights dimmed slightly. The crowd leaned forward. A slow countdown began. 3, 2, 1. Zara launched forward. This time she was serious. Her fists moved in blurs, her legs like whips. She came in fast, trying to overwhelm him early. Most opponents panicked when she used her full speed, but not Ray. He didn't even blink. He didn't move back. He didn't block, he waited. And at the exact right moment he leaned sideways, letting her strike pass harmlessly. Then he twisted, just enough to redirect her energy. Zara stumbled, lost balance for half a second. But that was enough. Ray stepped, unhooked her arm gently and placed her on the floor. Again, not slammed, not punched, just put down. Gasps filled the arena. Zara lay on her back, breathing hard. Her heart thumped inside her chest, not from fear, but from something worse. Disbelief. Ray stepped back, his face unreadable. She pushed herself up slower this time. How did you do that? She asked in a low voice. He didn't answer. Instead, he asked, Why do you keep attacking? Zara blinked. Because I wanted to see if you were lucky the first time. Ray looked straight into her eyes. I wasn't. Then he turned and walked out of the ring. Later that day, Zara sat alone in the academy garden. The twin suns were setting, casting golden light across the crystal trees. Her friends didn't sit with her. Not because they abandoned her, no, they still respected her. But today she didn't want their comfort, she wanted answers. She opened her datapad and once again searched for Earth's background, still locked. Every military file, every deep, historical record, classified. She stared at the screen and whispered, What are they hiding? That evening she went to the data center. Officially, students weren't allowed access past level 3, but Zara had friends, and some of them owed her favors. Using a cracked access code from a friend in engineering, she bypassed the security wall. The screen flickered, and then a red warning flashed. Accessing restricted human historical files. She tapped again, and it opened. Zara's eyes scanned the first file. A war zone. Earth's surface scorched by alien invasion. The enemies were powerful, almost unbeatable. But the humans kept fighting. They didn't win with stronger weapons. They didn't win with faster ships. They won because they refused to surrender. They used fire, dirt, gravity, disease, trickery, emotion. And worst of all, they learned fast. Each time they lost, they came back stronger. Another file showed a quote from a commander. Do not provoke humans. They are not the strongest species, but they are the most dangerous. They adapt faster than nature allows. If cornered, they will burn the galaxy before losing. Zara leaned back in her chair. Her hands trembled slightly. She remembered Ray's eyes now. They were not empty. They were trained. Eyes of someone who had seen things. Someone who knew too, much for his age. She closed the file. Her breath was shaky. He wasn't just a student, and Earth wasn't just a backward planet. The Forbidden Archives. The academy was quiet at night. Most students were in their dorms resting, but Zara couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with the images she saw earlier, the burned cities, the desperate fights, the way humans turned every defeat into something worse for their enemies. She kept seeing Ray's eyes, not afraid, not proud, just aware. She knew she needed more answers. What she found earlier was just the surface. Something deeper was being hidden, and Zara couldn't stop now. She put on a dark robe and quietly stepped into the hallway. Her eyes scanned the corners. No one there. With careful steps, she moved through the west wing and entered the restricted area of the data core. The door required a special key, but Zara had learned tricks from her brother back on Valari Prime. She pulled out a tool, tapped the lock panel, and rewired it in seconds. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the room was cold and full of glowing memory towers. Giant glass-like columns stored hundreds of years of secret data. She walked up to one labeled Human Expansion Era, black. Level only. Zara hesitated. A part of her wanted to stop, but another part whispered, "You need to know the truth." She placed her hand on the panel. The screen blinked red. Warning: unauthorized entry will be logged. She ignored it. Access granted. The screen opened to a file list: Earth Wars, Non-Galactic Conflicts, Psych Profile, Human Adaptability Operation, Scorched Signal, Red Zone, Why We Avoid Earth. She clicked the last one. The screen turned dark. A single sentence appeared. Earth is not dangerous because of its weapons. Earth is dangerous because humans refuse to break. A video loaded. Zara leaned in. It showed a galactic fleet landing on Earth during first contact. At first, the humans welcomed them. Peace, talks, open arms. Then the galactic forces made one mistake. They took children for experiments. Zara's breath caught as she watched the humans change overnight. The peaceful streets turned into traps. The skies turned into death zones. Entire alien ships vanished. Some were never found. A voice played in the background. We thought they were weak, but we didn't understand what they protect. The last image was horrifying. An alien general stood before what looked like a classroom. Human children sat calmly. The general spoke. "Why do you fight so hard for these little ones?" A human woman in armor replied. "Because we don't fear death. We fear what happens if we don't fight." Zara's hands trembled. She had mocked Ray, called him weak, but now she understood. He wasn't hiding his weakness. He was hiding his strength. Suddenly the screen flashed again. Alert. Unauthorized file access detected. Location locked. Report sent. Zara's heart jumped. She turned, ready to leave, but stopped. Someone stood in the doorway. Ray. He didn't look surprised. He didn't ask questions. He just said quietly, "Now you see." Zara stepped back, unsure. How long have you known I was looking?" Ray walked into the room, hands calm, eyes steady. "I knew since you laughed in the hallway." "Then why didn't you stop me?" she asked. He looked at her and said, "Because once you know the truth, you don't laugh anymore." Zara looked down. "I thought you were just slow, soft. You didn't react. You didn't get angry. I thought you were weak." Ray nodded. "Most do. That's why we survive. We let others think that." "But why come here?" she asked. "Why study at an academy full of species that insult your kind?" Ray's answer was slow. "Because someday, when the galaxy forgets what humans really are, they'll need a reminder." Zara shivered. This was no ordinary student. He was a living warning. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Guards. The alert had reached them. Ray looked at Zara and whispered, "Don't speak. Don't explain." "Why?" she asked. "Because I erased the logs before you got here. They'll think it was just me." She stared at him. "But you'll get in trouble." Ray smiled faintly. "Maybe. Or maybe they'll just feel nervous again. That's enough." As the guards entered, Ray stepped forward with raised hands. Zara stood frozen, her heart racing. One thing was clear now. This human wasn't here to learn. He was here to watch. And maybe to remind the galaxy why Earth was once feared. Thank you. Simulation room. Zara didn't see Ray for 2 days. After the incident in the restricted archive, no one mentioned what happened. The guards didn't speak about it. The data center remained locked, and Ray returned to class like nothing ever happened. But Zara couldn't forget. She couldn't stop thinking about what she saw. The war, the warning, the files marked, red zone, and most of all, she couldn't forget Ray's face. Calm, controlled, hiding something very old and very dangerous. Then on the 3rd day, Ray walked up to her in the training field. "Follow me," he said quietly. Zara looked around. "Where?" Ray didn't answer. He just walked away. She hesitated but followed. They went deep inside the academy to a room few students used. The door said simulation room, combat training only, supervised use required. But Ray had access. He opened it with a simple touch. The room inside was circular with black walls and a glowing platform in the middle. Ray stepped onto it. "Ever seen Earth's wars up close?" Zara blinked. "I saw the records." He shook his head. "No, you saw reports. I'll show you what it felt like." Zara hesitated. "Why?" "Because you asked who I really am," Ray said. "This is the closest answer." She stepped onto the platform. The room dimmed. The system came alive. Simulation, loaded, historical record, Earth defense, Crimson campaign, level, uncensored. Zara felt a chill crawl down her spine. The world around them changed. Suddenly they were standing on a battlefield. The sky was black and red, filled with smoke. Fires raged across broken cities. Giant enemy war beasts roared in the distance. Alien ships hovered above, dropping troopers by the dozens. Zara spun around in shock. The air was heavy. Her chest tightened. The ground shook beneath her feet. And then, human soldiers ran past her. Not in armor. Not with advanced weapons. Just rags, dirt-covered faces, old rifles. But their eyes were like Ray's. Dead serious. Ray pointed. "This is what we became. Not to win, but to survive." Zara watched as a young human girl, barely older than a child, took aim and shot down a flying enemy scout with perfect timing. Another boy set traps made of wire and fire. They moved with purpose, with desperation, with no fear. "They're children," Zara whispered. Ray nodded. "We didn't have time to grow up." A massive alien beast charged toward the humans. It looked like a monster from nightmares. 15 feet tall, armored, breathing fire. Zara stepped back, afraid. But a human man, small, alone, ran straight at it. No fear, no hesitation. He jumped onto its face, drove a steel pipe into its eye, and set off a homemade explosive. The beast screamed, fell, died. The man burned with it. Ray spoke beside her. "We learned how to kill what shouldn't be killable." Zara's hands trembled. "Why didn't the Galactic Union help?" "They tried," Ray said. "They thought it would be easy, but when the fighting got worse, they left. Said Earth was lost. But it wasn't." "No," Ray said, "because we didn't let it be." The scene shifted again. Now they stood in a forest. Human survivors hid in trees. Zara saw one use a mirror to signal another. An enemy troop. Ship passed low and they attacked in total silence. Every human moved like one body. Precise. Deadly. Ray looked at her. Now do you understand why the files were locked? Zara slowly nodded. They didn't want the galaxy to see this, she said. They didn't want anyone to remember what humans are capable of. Ray smiled faintly. Now you know why. I don't fight back when someone mocks me. Because you don't need to. Ray didn't answer. The simulation ended. The smoke vanished. The battlefield disappeared. They stood once again in the black room of the academy. Zara was silent for a long time. Then she asked, "Are there more like you?" Ray looked at her calmly. "There are fewer now. But those who remain remember everything." Zara nodded slowly. She didn't feel like mocking him anymore. In fact, for the first time in her life, she felt respect. Real respect. Not because of strength, but because of the will that strength came from. The classroom reveal. The next day, Zara entered the classroom with a different heart. She didn't walk with pride. She didn't flash her usual smile. Her eyes moved straight to Ray, who sat, as always, in the back corner of the room, silent. And still, he looked just like before. But Zara now saw something completely different. She didn't see a fragile human. She saw a soldier pretending to be a student. Their instructor, Professor Varel, a glowing telepath from the Alar species, floated to the center. "Today," she said, "you will pair up and research a conflict from your home worlds." Groans filled the room. "I'll assign the pairs. First, Zara and Ray." The class fell silent. A few students whispered. Some even laughed nervously. Zara didn't move. Ray stood calmly and walked to her table. She didn't look away this time. She simply asked, "What topic?" Ray shrugged. "You choose." She thought for a moment, then said, "The human extinction war." The class gasped. Professor Varel raised an eyebrow but didn't stop her. Ray only said, "All right." Later that evening, they sat in the library's quiet zone. Zara tapped her datapad, searching for publicly available material. Most of it was sanitized, short, or censored. Ray sat across from her, arms folded. She looked up. "Will you help me understand it? Not from the records, but from someone who remembers." Ray paused. "Why do you care?" "Because the galaxy needs to know," she said softly. "And because I misjudged you." Ray looked into her eyes for a long moment. Then he leaned forward and spoke. He didn't shout. He didn't dramatize. He just told her about the collapse when the sky turned red for weeks, told her about the siege of New Siberia, where he lost his mother, told her about the children who never cried, because they were taught to be silent or die. Zara listened, frozen. Ray's voice was steady, like he had repeated the memories many times, but only inside his mind. "No one came," he said. "We called the galaxy for help. Most didn't answer. Some came late. Others watched from a distance." "And the Galactic Union," Zara whispered. Ray's lips tightened. "They came once. Said they were observers. Left before the real fighting started." Zara lowered her eyes. "But your people survived," she said. "How?" Ray's fingers tapped the table once. "Because we learned one thing. When no one comes, we become the weapon ourselves." They sat in silence. No more questions. No more jokes. Just understanding. The next morning, Professor Varel called for presentations. Zara stood beside Ray. In front of the class, her voice didn't shake. "Our topic is the human extinction war," she began. "We studied official files, personal logs, and one first-hand witness." Gasps again. Eyes turned to Ray. Zara continued. She explained Earth's lack of support, the planet's fall into chaos, the civilian armies, the children turned soldiers, the homemade defenses, the refusal to surrender. Then she stepped aside. Ray stepped forward. He looked at no one. Yet everyone listened. He told them of his training, of how, at the age of 8, he learned to make a tripwire using only string and a tin can, of how they would sleep in silence knowing the enemy was close, of how even their songs turned into warning codes. "You laugh at humans," he said, "because we're smaller, slower, quieter." He paused. "But it's the quiet ones who survive the longest." No one laughed. Not this time. Not ever again. Professor Varel didn't speak for several seconds. Then she said, "Class dismissed." The students walked out slowly, some in silence, some staring back at Ray with new eyes. Zara didn't leave. She turned to Ray and said, "You didn't just survive war. You became its memory." Ray gave a tired smile. "We have to. If we forget, we risk letting it happen again." Zara nodded. "I won't forget." And from that moment, she didn't just see Ray as a classmate. She saw him as a reminder of Earth, of survival, of the price of being human. The emergency drill. It started like a normal day. Students filled the halls of Zentrax Academy, laughing, chatting, preparing for their next lesson. The sun shined through the transparent ceilings, casting golden light across the alien stone floors. But Ray felt it first, a strange vibration in the air, a silence between the laughter, a sound that didn't belong. Then came the alarm. "Wee-oh, wee-oh!" Alert! Unscheduled security breach detected in Sector 3. All students proceed to lock down shelters immediately. Panic spread fast. Zara froze mid-step in the hallway. Her classmates scattered in all directions. The academy lights turned red. Shield doors started closing. Drones flew out from the walls. She turned to look for Ray. But he was already gone. Meanwhile, in the control room, chaos erupted. Officers yelled commands, sensors blinked wildly, and the security AI failed to identify the intruders. "Unknown species," one officer shouted. "They're not responding to our protocols." "Defense systems offline," another said. "We've lost control of drone targeting." The academy's director, a tall, lizard-like alien named Cyrex, stared at the screens with wide eyes. How did they bypass galactic security? No one had an answer. Down in the hallways, Zara and a few students were trapped, cut off by the blast doors. She tried to open the access panel, but the system was locked. Then a deep, distant growl echoed from around the corner. She turned. A massive shadow moved in the smoke. An intruder. Zara grabbed a metal pipe from the wall and stood ready, heart racing. But before the creature reached them, a figure stepped from the other side of the hall. Ray. He wasn't running. He wasn't panicking. He just walked straight toward the danger. "Ray, what are you doing?" Zara shouted. He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out a small square device from his jacket and tapped a code. The wall beside him opened, an ancient Earth tech panel hidden in plain sight. From it, 4 old-style human defense drones emerged, powered by solar energy and logic chips. They locked onto the intruder, Zuldust. Boom! The creature went down in seconds. Zara stared in disbelief. "What was that?" Ray walked up to her. "Emergency system. I installed it 2 months ago, just in case." "You what?" she asked. "I told them Earth doesn't send civilians," he replied calmly. "They didn't believe me, so I prepared quietly." More creatures roared in the distance. Zara and the students followed Ray as he led them through maintenance tunnels, dark, cold, and unknown to most. But Ray moved like he'd memorized every inch. "This way," he said, guiding them toward a secondary command hub. "How do you know all this?" Zara asked as they ran. Ray didn't look back. "Earth schools aren't just for math and science. We learn survival too. Engineering, security, defense logic." Zara whispered. "You were trained for war." Ray replied, "We were trained for what might come next." They reached the backup control room. Ray bypassed the lock using a sequence no one else knew. Inside, the systems were still working. He sat at the console, fingers flying across the keys. Within seconds, he hijacked the Academy's local defense. Grid. Cameras turned back on, doors reopened, drones returned to command. He pulled up a visual of the intruders, huge armored brutes with burning eyes and plasma claws. "Species?" Zara asked. Unknown, Ray said. But I've seen similar ones in Earth's black files. They attack during weakness. Test defenses. Zara stared at him. Why didn't the system stop them? Because the system was built by those who think peace is permanent. He turned to her, eyes sharp. But we humans know better. Minutes later, the main Academy command hailed them. Who's controlling the grid? Identify yourself, Ray replied. Cadet Ray, human, I've secured the system. Director Cyrex's voice came through. How did you? No time. Evacuation. Routes are active. I'm routing the creatures into sealed corridors. Tell your guards to follow the map I'm uploading. There was silence for a moment. Then a quiet response. Understood. An hour later, the threat was gone. The invaders had been neutralized, trapped, or forced to retreat. No students were harmed. No buildings were destroyed. The Academy stood, because one human had prepared while everyone else doubted. Later that night, Zara stood with Ray near the observation deck watching the stars. She didn't speak for a while. Then she said softly, "You saved us all." Ray shrugged. "I did what needed to be done." "No," Zara said, stepping closer. "You did what no one else could do." Ray looked out the window. This galaxy is beautiful, but it forgets easily. Then maybe it's time it remembered, Zara whispered. Ray turned to her, a rare, soft smile on his face. Maybe. The respect of a warrior. The Academy returned to normal within a few days, but things were no longer the same. Students who once mocked Ray now gave him space. Some nodded at him in respect. Others couldn't meet his eyes. And Zara? She stayed close, but never out of pity. She had changed. She now walked beside Ray like someone who had seen the truth. During morning assembly, Director Cyrex called the entire student body to the main hall. He stood at the center, his long green cloak brushing the floor, voice calm, but serious. The Academy was attacked, he began, and it was not our guards, our drones, or our systems that saved us. It was one student, one human. All eyes turned to Ray, who sat quietly in the third row. Cyrex looked directly at him. "Ray of Earth," he said. "Stand up." Ray stood. Cyrex nodded. "You used protocols none of us knew. You accessed systems that hadn't worked in decades. You led a defense that saved over 600 lives." Ray didn't respond with a smile. He simply nodded once. Cyrex continued. "And yet you never asked for recognition. You just acted. Why?" Ray's answer was simple. Because Earth trains us to help, even when help is not expected. The room went silent. No one laughed. No one whispered. Not anymore. Later that evening, Zara met Ray on the rooftop garden. The stars above shimmered in blue and violet hues. Below them, the Academy glowed with soft lights. Ray leaned on the railing, looking up. Zara walked beside him. "I've been thinking," she said, "about the first day we met." Ray chuckled softly. "You mean when you called me soft-boned and laughed in my face?" Zara blushed. "Yes, that." Ray didn't look offended. He simply said, "It doesn't bother me. Most people don't see what's underneath. But I see it now," Zara said. He turned to her. She looked serious. "You didn't just survive war. You became part of its memory. You carry Earth's pain and its strength." Ray looked down. "Sometimes I wish I didn't." Zara stepped closer. "But maybe that's why you're here, to remind the galaxy." Ray raised an eyebrow. "Reminded of what?" She smiled. "That peace doesn't come from power. It comes from the will to protect others, no matter the cost." Suddenly, the Academy bell rang behind them, but they didn't move. They stood quietly side by side. Finally, Zara said, "I told my clan about you, about Earth. They want to send scholars, to learn more." Ray smiled faintly. "Good. Maybe this time people will listen before the fire starts." Zara looked up at him. "You're not just a classmate, Ray. You're a warrior. One that fights without showing off. One that saves without shouting. He gave a slow nod. That's how we were raised. A few days later, Ray received a private message from Galactic Command. He opened it in silence. It read, "Human Ray, we acknowledge your actions. Your placement at Zentrax Academy is hereby upgraded to Tier 1 Observer status. Continue as you." Ours Earth Command. Ray closed the message. He didn't smile. He just whispered, "Still watching." As the semester continued, Zara and Ray were seen together often, studying, training, or walking quietly through the gardens. She no longer laughed at his silence. She respected it, because now she knew what lived behind those quiet eyes. Not weakness, not pride, but depth, the kind that comes only from surviving what others can't imagine. One day, a younger student approached Ray, nervous and curious. "Is it true?" the child asked. "That your planet burned and still fought back?" Ray knelt down, met the child's eyes, and nodded once. "Yes," he said. "We lost everything, but we didn't lose ourselves." And with those words, the legend of Earth began to rise again, not from fear, not from power, but from the quiet strength of one human who reminded the stars what it truly meant to stand unbroken.